Welcome one and all to the second edition of the Archive of Anomalies podcast, featuring yours truly, Arthur.
Podcast.
It's a broadcast. I'm broadcasting to the internet.
You said broadcast.
Broadcast. There we go. It's the best of both worlds. It's a podcast and it's a broadcast. We're making the future
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
See, we're starting something new, something fresh. They don't expect this, you see.
Right.
This is the sort of thing. Also, I have to be careful not to actually touch my Discord, because goodness knows it's going to start bringing up weird stuff. Anyway, no, don't do that. Don't minimize it.
Oh,
Okay.
bye.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This is a weird thing. Anyway, where was I? Yes, that's what it
You
was.
were introducing yourself and then you said podcast.
I said podcast. So it's a new thing. We're starting something. See, fresh ideas, a whole new generation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anyway, yes, so I am your host, Arthur Animalia, and I am joined by our very special guest, the vexational vampire themselves, Coral. Say hello to the fine people out there, Coral.
Hello, fine people out there.
Well, there you go. Sure. Good. The sass on this one, absolute sass. So,
That's me.
give a little introduction. Tell us a bit about yourself, for those who haven't seen you before.
I am a vampire, as is mentioned in my name. That was a really helpful piece of information. I'm a variety streamer. I mostly do comfy games. Sometimes we'll branch into like Valorant and kill people.
Oh, well,
As you
murder's
do.
very much going to be on the table for this edition,
Mm.
let's be honest here. So what was it that really brought you to sign up for this episode? I'm quite interested.
Um, I really like wacky conspiracy theories. Uh, that's kind of what led me here.
All
I
right.
like just learning a lot about random things. I have a redeem on my channel called Coral's Fun Facts, which is for 1,000 channel points. I will just rattle off the first fun fact that comes to my brain. They're not fun.
Fun fact: everyone's dead. Oh.
Fun fact: there was once a chicken that lived without a head for 14 days.
Wow, that is interesting.
Mm.
I don't know. I find that quite interesting, actually. I think it's a fun fact. I mean, it depends what kind of company you're keeping off, that sort of thing. Speaking
Yeah.
of, threw me off then. Speaking of people who are somehow surviving without a head, we're going to talk about one of the weirdest deaths in British history, well, Anglo-Italian history, as we're going to delve into a deep conspiracy which I found quite recently, and I'm surprised there's not a lot of like big people who've really covered it. You get things like there's a few podcasts out there that talk about mysteries and stuff, but I've never seen as many people sort of following up on it. But looking at it, it feels literally like probably one of those JFK level conspiracies we're delving into. Um, do you have sort of a favourite conspiracy, by the way, Carl?
A favorite? Not massively.
Alright, any that really pique your interest? It's just sort of whatever comes about for you.
It's just kind of whatever comes about as and when. I don't tend to retain a lot of the information. It's like 3 a.m. crawl into Wikipedia and then I go to bed and I wake up
Well, I
with
mean,
nothing.
yeah, I suppose that really helps. Well, here's hoping this will be really interesting for you, as we're going to look into the mysterious death of God's banker, Roberto Calvi. So, I will bring up my notes, because this is going to be an absolute heckin' chonker, and I think we shall begin. So, let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, quite the image to start us off on, on here.
It is an image.
It is an image, certainly an image. So, we're going to go back to the year of 1982, specifically the 17th of June, to the city of Milan. Now, during this time, one of the largest Italian banks, a bank known as Banco Ambrosiano, image you can see in the top right. I would also like to preface, I apologise for any Italian or people of Italian descent, this is going to be horribly butchered. Banco Ambrosiano was in the midst of an entire collapse after finding $1.2 billion had disappeared from its vaults, seemingly nowhere. The bank itself was on the verge of a complete shutdown as it could not afford to pay its creditors, it couldn't afford to take in loans. It was over. The growing pressure and mounting issues resulted in the bank manager's own secretary throwing herself from a top floor window, and would actually cite in a final letter that it was the bank's manager who would be the one that would drive her to this unfortunate end. So we're off to a fantastic start right here.
Damn. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, real fun start here. Meanwhile, we're going to jump over to the other side of Europe as we go to London. I'm sure you've been around London a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Particularly, we're going to go to. You ever been to Blackfriars Bridge?
I have.
Well, at 7:30 in the morning on the 18th of June, the very day after, a postal worker was on his way to work when he noticed what looked to have been like an orange cable or wiring, something wrapped around the fence bit of Blackfriars Bridge. Naturally, you'd be a bit curious, you'd be thinking, why is this orange cord just wrapped around it? So he looked over and actually found the body of a man hanging from Blackfriars Bridge. A representation of such being the large black and white image you can see to the left. Blackfriars Bridge, of course, being the bottom right image for a bit of reference. Now, I believe that's the closest we would have gotten in 1982 to what the bridge was like then. That is the old bridge. It's been replaced by a new bridge, but that's a side detail. Immediately, the postal worker who had found the man called the police, and they managed to fish him down. You know, that sort of thing. Just, oh, damn, there's a dead body here. Oh, well, one of
Guess I'll just go on with my day.
I'll just carry on. I don't want to be late for work, though, you know. So he calls the police, naturally, and the police manage to get the body down. And the first thing comes to, who is this man and what is he doing here? After doing a bit of a search, they found that the man's name was by the name of Gian Roberto Calvini. This was according to a passport that they found in his pocket. Also found in there was £10,000.
In his pocket?
Yeah, just in his pocket. £10,000 just in his pocket. So certainly quite a haul. But the weirdest thing as well, what was also found in there was a load of bricks.
How big are his fucking pockets, dude?
I mean, we're talking like a full-size suit here. You know, broken up bricks, cash, passport, that kind of stuff. Now, of course, people wanted to sort of have a word and find out more about who this person was, any next of kin or anything like that. So they made inquiries with the Italian embassy. It turned out that this man was actually existing under a false identity, and his real name was Roberto Calvi, and he was the bank manager of Banco Ambrosiano, the very bank which had gone through a collapse the very day before. He had actually been reported missing from his Milan home the day before, and this is where things get interesting, because many people wondered what Calvi was doing in London whilst this entire banking empire was collapsing around him. But
having a good time.
Oh, apparently, yeah. Good enough for time to end up hanging the Blackfriars Bridge.
You know, you could say he was just hanging around. I'm so sorry.
Fuck's. Oh, it's going to be a fun time. I know this is going to be a fun one. I mean, considering what was going on, it was really at the end of his rope at that point. Oh dear me. But I think that's right, we found out more about this man before we then continue. So let's go on to the next slide. So, we're going to start off looking into the history of Banco Ambrosiano for the first one. The very institution which lies at the heart of this massive conspiracy. So it was founded in Milan in the year of 1896 by a man by the name of Giuseppe Tovini. He was a Catholic lawyer and banker whose image you can see on the left side of the screen. The namesake was a saint by the name of Saint Ambrose, who is the patron saint of Milan, and also beekeepers apparently, which is an interesting sort of thing. Beekeepers, yeah. Patron saint of beekeepers.
Live your best truth.
Live your best
live your
life.
Truth.
Live your truth. Keep bees. Now Saint.
Real buzz.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You know, really put a sting in your tail with that kind of history. Now, St. Ambrose was seen as one of the 4 traditional doctors of the Christian Church, one of the 4 key founding members of the Christian Church as we know it today.
What did he bring? Bees?
I don't know. It was actually it's quite interesting. This is St. Ambrose, and a lot of the saints are a rabbit hole in and of themselves. I'm not a Christian scholar, so I can't really say for certain a lot of the deep level stuff, but it's you know, one of those weird little facts. The bank itself was founded with a very strong character of high morals and very strong Christian ideals, and would actually be used by many high-ranking members of the clergy, especially in the Catholic Church. This is what led to its nickname as God's Bank, and the people who worked there would come to be known as God's Bankers. St. Ambrose, you can see, is there in the middle. You've got Banco Ambrosiano on the right, and as stated, Giuseppe Tovini on the left. So if we go to the next slide, we'll find out more about the man in question. Roberto Calvi was appointed general manager of Banco Ambrosiano in 1971 and would become chair in 1975. He was born on the 13th of April 1920 and was the son of a manager of another large Italian bank, the Banca Commerciale Italia. As I said, I apologise to anyone of Italian descent or any Italian people watching. This is going to be an absolute shit show. During his time at Banco Ambrosiano, he would come to gain the nickname of God's Banker. And when he was found in 1982, his end was originally ruled as a suicide. Now, strangely enough, the fate of Calvi, who is pictured in the top left, went to inspire partly The Godfather Part 3, where one of the, I can't think of the name of the character, but high-level banker is hanged by the mob, by the Corleone family, as part of the film's plot. It's a weird little sort of side note on that one. Now, from the first investigations, it was believed that it was just an unfortunate case. You know, the man's bank had collapsed, everything had fallen around him, he'd given up on life and decided to put it to his own end. And it was ruled first as a suicide back in 1982 in July. Now, the family, pictured on the right, never believed that this was the case. And what they did was they launched a series of campaigns to try and get another inquest done. This inquest was held in July of 1983. And the cause of death was changed to what's known as an open verdict. Have you heard that term before?
Yeah, well, they aren't entirely sure.
Now, further investigations were carried on into the 1990s, particularly in 1991, of the exhumed body of Calvi, found that there was no evidence that he'd ever climbed on the railing which led to Blackfriars Bridge, particularly because the shoes lacked the paint that would have come off when he was walking there. When he had been found, there was no signs his neck had been broken. There was no way that the fall had been enough to have killed him. The body was then exhumed in 1998. The injuries to his body were found to be inconsistent with a hanging, and it was found that Calvi had not put the bricks into his own pocket. Someone had put them in the pocket. Now, based on that assessment, it's believed that he was hung after death, and whoever killed him brought him along the river and hang him on via Blackfriars Bridge. Which means we're looking at murder. Now, some people still uphold that it was a suicide. For some reason, I am equally as confused as you are. As Calvi had previously attempted to take his own life in 1981. This was after he had been convicted for smuggling out apparently $27 million from Italy illegally, and he'd been in court.
Well.
Oh yeah, great start. He'd been caught, convicted, put into prison, and apparently had tried to take his own life then. But let's be honest here, there's too many weird things for me to believe that it's just a man at the end of his tether, who decided to, end it all. So I don't trust that for a second. So this is where we get to the interesting bit. If we go to the next slide. So our first subject in question, we're going to look at the Vatican. Yes, the Vatican himself. And we're going to start off by looking at a man by the name of Paul Marcinkus, pictured on the left. Now, Marcinkus was born on the 15th of January 1922 in Cicero, Illinois, the United States. He would be appointed of the Vatican Bank, pictured in the top right, in 1968, and would become president of the bank in 1971. Now, Marcinkus was involved in some very dodgy dealings, like some real dodgy shit. He'd been implicated in laundering money through the Vatican Bank with Calvi's
Oh.
help. Oh, yes, Molly, we've got a fantastic
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy on this one for you. Because what had been happening is that the Vatican Bank basically acts as a giant money laundering scheme for several illegal crime syndicates, and for every bit they laundered, they would get a cut of the action. This is what allowed the Vatican Bank to make its money. And this is all out in the public. This was all blown out. This was all found, exposed, the whole shebang. So this isn't. There's no allegedly in any of this. Now, the way they did this was it was done for the benefit of Vatican officials and even the Italian mafia and the Camarilla through various shell companies set up by Marcinkus and Calvi. Part of this had been a delivery of $14.5 million of counterfeit bonds being delivered to the Vatican in July of 1971. This had actually been found and investigated by the United States Department of Justice.
Jesus.
So he was on the radar of the DOJ. There was no hidden bit of this. Now Calvi had actually threatened to expose the money laundering scheme and wrote an open letter to Pope John Paul II to state, if you don't help bail out my bank, I am going to go to the world and expose what's going on with this. So he wanted that full bailout of his own bank in exchange for his silence, as Banco Ambrosiano was reaching the verge of collapse. The Vatican, however, did not bother trying to help him. So, well done. Now,
It's a lot of money.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute lot of money. Now, part of the source of that, if you look towards the bottom right, came from Poland. See, during around the early days of the 1980s, there was a large scale of protests going on in Poland in what was known as the Solidarity Movement. The Vatican and the Pope were very much anti-communist in every way possible. And the head of the Catholic Church in Poland had asked for help in supporting many sort of protests and standings against the communist government in power. Now, money which was laundered through the Vatican Bank and through Banco Ambrosiano was delivered to Poland to then fund what was known as the Solidarity Movement. So we're dealing with the full-on large-scale anti-government protests with illegal money taken from the mafia, laundered to the Vatican Bank and Banco Ambrosiano, sent to Poland to fund anti-communist protests.
My God.
This is the kind of rabbit hole I have been delving into. This is the surface level.
Oh God.
You see what I've gotten involved in, Carl. You see the things I get involved in. Now, it's believed that the Vatican may have tried to have Calvi killed specifically to avoid him from exposing their dirty laundry and all that money that they had laundered out of the country for their own purposes. Now, there is another conspiracy tied into this, which we'll go over briefly, which I think goes to evidence why the Vatican may be a likely candidate for the people responsible for the death of Calvi. And that is in John Paul's predecessor, John Paul I.
Oh, wow. Who could have guessed that?
Wow! As we're going to now look at how potentially the Vatican may have killed its previous pope, if we go to the next page.
Murder, murder, murder.
Oh yeah, the murder train doesn't stop here. So...
It's a good name, they reuse it.
I mean, John Paul I, I believe he took the name specifically to honour two previous popes and their work, I believe. I'm not quite sure. As I said, I'm not a Christian researcher, not a historian, and that sort of thing. But that's also a rabbit hole in and of itself. Oh, that's a little thing. Got a picture of the nightstand. So John Paul I was born the 17th of October 1912 and became Pope on the 26th of August 1978. He was then found dead in his bedroom on the 29th of September 1978, only 33 days into his papacy. So he'd been 33 days as Pope and was then found dead in his bedroom.
Still lasted longer than Liz Truss.
Oh, absolutely. The cabbage lasted longer than Liz Truss. Gee. That was a fun one. And let's just say Liz Truss's prime ministership didn't end in death. So, you know.
No. She ended that one voluntarily.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, bit of a side note. Have you ever seen a game called Trombone Champ?
Yeah.
Have you seen somebody's vocoded the resignation of Liz Truss to Trombone Champ? I'll send it you after. It's absolutely hilarious.
Please do.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Anyone else? I recommend you check it out. It's absolutely hilarious. Anyway, where were we? Ah, yes, Pope murder. So he'd been found dead only 33 days into his papacy. As pictured on the top right, he was found having been sat in his bed with glasses on with some reading material, and his death was originally ruled as a heart attack. Apparently, he had complained of some chest pains the night before to some of his assistants. Now, what happened was John Paul had a habit of usually having some morning coffee before then retiring to then do morning prayers and that sort of thing. One of the sisters, of course, came up to bring his morning coffee, knocked on the door, didn't hear anything, so she knocked again. Again, nothing heard. She then opened the door to find Pope John Paul I dead in his bed in that position. It was reported that he'd been reading Thomas a Kempist's Imitation of Christ. Don't ask me what the actual content is, as I'm not a scholar on that sort of thing. But apparently it was very...
far too spicy for him.
very, very... some deep-level Christian research in there, my goodness. Oh yeah, that'd be quite a... That's certainly an episode of Father Ted that would be quite interesting. Very interesting episode of Father Ted.
Father Ted, the Pope died. The what?
Now, whilst it was first thought that these were the Imitation of Christ, some people believe these were actually a series of reforms meant to fight the growing corruption within the Catholic Church. Because, to put it lightly, as we were all very much aware, there was a lot of dodgy shit going on in the Catholic Church. This is not a new thing. It was believed that John Paul was actually deliberately poisoned by high-ranking members of the Vatican to prevent him from being able to put through these reforms and dealing with high-ranking cardinals who were involved in illegal activity, people such as Paul Marcinkus. In fact, Calvi and Marcinkus have been implicated as part of a possible assassination plot on John Paul I. One of the weird little details is that following the death of John Paul I, they only embalmed him a day after. Now, usually, the body's usually left for some time, and it was found that even with the current temperatures, which they said are the reason why they embalmed him so quickly, he could have easily been left 2, 3, even 4 days before his embalming. But for some reason, what they had done was they had embalmed him the day after with all of his blood still in his body.
Oh.
Which I don't know if you know much about. Which I don't know if you know much about embalming, but usually you're supposed to drain the blood from the cadaver before you embalm them. And people believe this was done specifically as a means of covering up the method of murder.
Makes sense.
So yeah, we're dealing with a potential murdered pope. So that's our first suspect in the matter. The second suspect, if we move on to the next slide, we're looking at the Sicilian Mafia.
Yay!
Which is where things are getting interesting. So, pictured on the right is a man by the name of Michel Sedona. He was born the 8th of May 1920, and worked with the Italian and Jewish mob in smuggling operations. As part of his work, he actually founded a company called Fasco AG, which was an investment company, which was actually secretly a money laundering company. With strong ties to the Gambino crime family linked, which is pictured in the middle. Now, Sedona made his fortune in laundering money from heroin smuggling for the Gambinos. So, we're getting some very interesting territory from here. So what would end up happening is money made from the Gambinos would be sent through the investment firm run by Sedona. Sedona would then move the money around, of course, make it look legitimate through various shell companies, and then the money would be returned, perfectly safe and sound, minus of course a cut for his fees, and would be completely clean, free to go. In fact, it would be Sedona who would teach Marcinkus and Calvi how to launder the money through those offshore accounts. So he would basically be the one who would teach them how the Vatican would come to make its money. So we're off to a very good start with this person.
It's an interesting job.
He would also befriend the future Pope Paul VI, who was the predecessor to John Paul I, and would have very strong ties with the Vatican Bank. So here we go. Now, Sedona, as part of his investments, would try and take a controlling stock in a company called the Franklin National Bank in the United States. However, following a series of bad investments following his takeover, their value would drop by 80%.
Oh, that's a big number.
That's how you tank an entire bank.
Yeah.
This results in the bank's collapse on the 8th of October 1974. Congratulations. This man single-handedly took out a bank using his own money. Well done.
What a feat, honestly.
Absolutely. Single-handedly just nuke your own finances. Well done there.
That's such an interesting idea you have there.
Genius.
Nuke your own finances.
Fantastic. Brilliant idea. Save in, invest often, collapse your own entire empire. Well done, mate. 10 out of 10.
Create an empire and then destroy it before anyone else can.
Exactly. We call this the German method. 2 world wars and 1 world cup. Doo-dah. Doo-dah. This is the kind of thing I love. I love getting up to this sort of business. No, it only would get worse. Sedona would actually then be implicated in another murder.
Again?
Oh, another murder, yeah. Of the gentleman on the left by the name of Giorgio Ambrosoli. Sorry, Ambrosoli. Now, he was a lawyer tied with Sedona's sort of illegal enterprises who threatened to expose the whole thing. So Sedona would actually hire 3 hitmen.
3?
3 hitmen.
That seems excessive. Isn't 1 hitman supposed to do it?
Well, you never know. You always bring another 2 just in case. And
if
would
I was a hitman, I'd just get the job done.
Oh, absolutely. Save some money. Do the right thing. So, what would end up happening is Sedona would then be convicted for this murder on the 16th of March 1985. This then resulted in another murder.
Oh my god.
On the 22nd of March 1986, when Sedona was found dead in his cell after being poisoned.
Huh? Huh?
You see the rabbit hole. You see the reason. Now, this was believed to have been a deliberate hit done by the mafia to ensure that Sedona couldn't expose that he was laundering heroin money from their own enterprises. So we have several. I'm trying to think how many degrees of murder are on here. I'm losing track.
I'm at like 5.
Yeah, we're about
4 and a suicide.
Okay, but quote unquote.
Well, no, 4 and a suicide that was apparently
Oh,
driven
yes.
by young guy.
Yes, the secretary. Now, this is the absolute insanity. So, as I said, this was believed to have been a mafia hit carried out deliberately to silence Sedona. The ties don't stop there as we go to our next slide.
Rest in peace, Sedona. We lost all of 5 minutes.
Just rust in piss. Dear me. Now,
so what happens when you launder heroin money?
this is what happens when you launder heroin money. But the mafia ties don't stop there. Now, Calvi, when this whole mess was going on, his bank was on the collapse, tried to escape to Switzerland, deliberately so he could try and withdraw money to save his bank before anyone realised what was going on. And the man he had spoken to try and get this arranged is a man by the name of Flavio Carboni, who is the person on the left, who is a known fixer for the mafia, particularly the Sicilian Camorra. Now, when he tried to escape to Switzerland, they were on the car, in the car on the way, when they thought, hold on, this is going to be a terrible idea, because what we're going to do is we're going to go to Switzerland, immediately come back, and they're going to clock us before we get a chance to get back to Milan, where we can get everything sorted out. So Carboni assured him that if you go to London, raise the money there, then fly back, it's going to be a much safer option to avoid you being clocked for all these dodgy dealings. Now, Carboni would fly with Calvi to London and would take him to the Chelsea Cloisters, pictured in the bottom right, which was, at the time, not the best place. Apparently it scrubbed up quite well, but not as nice as it is now. Carboni would then fly back to Italy, saying he had some business to deal with. Great start. The last sighting of Calvi would be when he was leaving with 2 Italian men. This would be the last time he would be seen alive before being found under the Blackfriars Bridge. Now, the mafia clearly had some involvement, and the hitman believed to have been involved in Calvi's death was a known mafia member by the name of Francesco Di Carlo, pictured in the top right. Now, he had been working in London and was a former Sicilian mafioso turned in. He had been working in London according to another informant by the name of Francesco Marino Manoia, who was a Sicilian mafioso turned informant. Now, when questioned, Di Carlo himself would deny this, but say that he was approached to carry out the hit by members of the Italian mafia. Instead, he states that 2 brothers, Vaccari and Vincenzo Casillo, 2 men who would also later be found dead, so we can put 2 more onto the murder counter.
Oh my
god. Were the ones that carried out the hit. It was believed that money that Calvi had moved to fund Solidarity on behalf of the Pope had been embezzled by Calvi from money that he had taken from the Italian mafia. So we've got Italian mafia money laundered through Banco.
Laundered through the bank and then embezzled back
to Calvi.
To the Pope. Oh, back to Calvi, then to the Pope.
No.
No.
So what was supposed to happen is the money was taken from the mafia, put through Banco Ambrosiano, to then be sent to the Pope. And then onwards to support Spain. Sorry, to support the Polish Solidarity movement. No, Spain comes later, but that's when we get to the real deep-level conspiracy stuff. Instead of the money then going to the Pope and then onward to Poland, instead Calvi embezzled the money and pocketed it himself. So he openly stole Italian mafia money for his own benefit.
That's certainly a move to make when you're in that situation.
Oh, absolutely. Very fantastic idea. Brilliant way. This is exactly how you get murdered.
Yeah.
Now.
This is how you set up your own murder.
This is how you get set up for murder. So, we have 2 suspects so far, because Calvi offing himself is completely ridiculous as an idea as far as I'm concerned. So, we have the Vatican, and we have the Mafia. Now, what if I told you that there was one entity which exists outside of them and yet is all of the above.
Huh?
As we're going to go to the next slide.
Huh? What?
So, we're going to be looking at an entity known as Propaganda 2, or P2, whose symbols you can see in the top left and top right. Now, how much do you know sort of about, like, Masonry and the Freemasons?
Like nothing.
This is the kind of... Yeah, yes, we are going there. We are going full Freemason conspiracy mode.
God.
Yeah, why are you not Catholic anymore? Well, I have no idea. Why are you not Catholic?
I
I'm
wonder.
surprised. Yeah, we're not piling up bodies here left, right and centre or anything. No, sirree.
We're not on murder 6 of unknown.
Oh yeah, we are on 6 murders. So, sort of a short and long of it. So, sort of the idea of the Freemasons was they were secret societies of usually religious individuals who had come together and sort of work towards a common goal. Some of the most well-known early examples of the Freemasonry would be in France, particularly around the French Revolution. As many leading members of the French Revolution were also part of Masonic lodges with each other. Now, one of these Masonic lodges in Milan would spawn the P2 movement in 1966. And this would be founded by a man of Liccioghelli, pictured old in the bottom right, but sort of at the time when it was founded in the middle. Now, Liccioghelli was born the 21st of April 1919, and to put it lightly, is a massive piece of shit. He was a neo-fascist.
Oh, yay!
Oh yeah, who served under Benito Mussolini during the Second World War. He would also fight in Spain alongside the forces of Spanish dictator and fascist Francisco Franco, who would be the dictator of Spain up until his death. Let's just say people do not speak kindly of Francisco Franco. Now, under the guidance of Gary, P2, the wing, would be responsible for supporting what were known as the Years of Lead in Italy. Essentially, the Years of Lead, in like a small sort of subgroup, was a pseudo-Italian civil war fought between various political groups. So, of course, you had the mainstay Italian government, but you also had the Red Brigades, who were sort of a communist cell known for various shootings, bombings, and a lot of sort of terrorist activity. You then had P2 on the other side supporting the right wing, who were also responsible for various murders, bombings, assassinations, a load of fun stuff. One of which was the bombing of a train station in 1980, which is the image behind you. They would also then work to try and pin a lot of their own attacks on the left, sort of the left-wing anarchists. Now, there are various prominent members who were part of P2. Now, stop me if any of these names sound familiar. Michel Sidona.
Why does that sound familiar?
I don't know, he might have been the man who was laundering money for the Italian mafia and then was found dead in his prison cell. Maybe.
Yeah, that might do it, you know. It's just such a common name.
Oh yeah, you know, I'm sure they're not related at all. There were also several high-ranking members of the Casa Nostra and the Sicilian mafia within P2.
Crazy.
There were also several members with close ties to the Vatican.
Wow. It's crazy how all this ties together, right, guys?
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Coincidence.
A large majority of the Italian government, I think about 48 members of the Italian government were actually P2 members. And here's the real kicker. One of the members was a banker you might remember the name of by the name of Roberto Calvi.
Oh, crazy. Wow.
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 Now, it's only, funnily enough, the only reason why we know about P2 is because of Michel Sidona. Because of after the banking collapse and the entire collapse of his financial empire, there was a lot of investigations into Sedona to find out what was actually going on and how we ended up where we were. And this would lead to the exposure of P2 as an organisation, and that's the reason why we only know it exists today. Another interesting member you might have heard of was a former Italian Prime Minister who was well known for some of his very unsavoury activity. Quite a recent one. Let me try and find. I forgot to note it down, but what was his name now?
You know, you bringing up the Italian dictators reminded me of when I went to Tanzania with my school ages ago. I think it was like 2018. There was, in one of the schools we visited, there was a poster on the wall, and it was a poster of like the world's most deadly dictators or something. And it had pictures of all the dictators, right? And then underneath them was their name and the amount of people they killed.
Oh boy.
Allegedly. I say allegedly because some of these numbers are not correct.
Allegedly.
And Margaret Thatcher was on there.
Oh, fantastic!
It was also a picture of Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep
playing Margaret Thatcher.
Oh dear me, that's actually funny. I like that.
Also,
that.
they underestimated good old Adolf's death count by about 100,000.
Oh, only 100,000. Wow, that's surprising. Who would have thought? Here we go. Here's the person you might have heard of.
It was an interesting poster.
Very interesting poster. I don't know how many people may remember a man by the name of Silvio Berlusconi.
The name doesn't ring a bell.
He was the Italian Prime Minister up until June of 2023.
Wonderful.
Was it no? Did he? Yeah, he was in office till June of 2023. And Berlusconi's dodgy dealings are of another whole variety. What I will say is do not search up bonga parties. Because that is some messed up shit.
I wasn't planning on it.
Berlusconi did some very strange things and was incredibly dodgy. But he was also confirmed to be a member of P2, which I think says it all.
Yeah.
Now, P2 themselves were actually... This is where I get to the tin... Have you got your tinfoil hat ready, Coral?
That's my sandwich on my head.
There we go. Fantastic. Because P2, effectively, as I mentioned, because they had lots of members within the Italian parliament, were essentially a secret shadow government with full control of the Italian Senate, because they had the influence on most of the Italian government.
Huh?
Yeah, we're on full Illuminati, secret control, shadow government, conspiracy enclave shit here. This is confirmed to have happened. This is not allegedly. This is not the supposedly. This is not. Why are you talking such crazy things, Arthur? Are you sure you don't need some more medication, Arthur? Are you sure you don't need to sit down, Arthur? You're talking silly things again.
You probably do need two of those things, but also it's not unrelated to this.
That's unrelated. Well, yeah, one of those sorts of things. And this is the real kicker. Because at some point, because for some reason, any weird conspiracy always for some reason ends up involving them, P2 had ties to the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA.
Why?
Why does the CIA keep appearing in the...
How? Why?
The CIA
How did we get
worked...
here?
So the CIA worked alongside P2, particularly as a means of monitoring and suppressing pro-communist movements in Italy. And they would provide large amounts of funding towards many sort of anti-communist organisations, both in the government and on the right-wing opposition. specifically as part of like this massive operation that we're doing at the time. But that's a whole deeper rabbit hole that, believe me, I think we're in very deep right now, and that is a rabbit hole in and of itself. Um, Now, as I'm sure you can probably see that P2 has close ties to the Vatican Bank via Calvi, the Italian Mafia via Sedona, various members of the Italian government, and all of them had a hand and a key as part of this whole financial operation. And also through their own agendas, through the suppressing of this whole like mess and the exposure of their own existence. So, I present to you my belief that the death of Roberto Calvi was orchestrated by members of P2 who all had a stake in Calvi's death. Each one of them had the interest to ensure that Calvi did not expose not only their existence as an organisation, but also to ensure that their financial dealings, all the dodgy shit that they were up to, was never brought to light. Everything that they had done was never put forward, and nobody would come in to ruin their fantastic parade. And one of the things I think really sells it, it might be a coincidence, it might not be, in that P2 had a nickname for themselves. The Frati Neri, translating as the Black Friars. And where did we find the body?
Under Blackfriars Bridge.
You see the rabbit hole I have been delving into for this car.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Now, I don't know your take on it, but where do you stand? With the information I presented, where do you think this all fits in?
I think it very well is an orchestrated, like, this is a cover-up from people who don't want to be seen. And it makes very perfect sense for it to have been orchestrated as a collaborative effort by all the people who had a stake in his existence. Because that bank was used for so much illegal stuff.
So much illegal shit.
And if any of that got out anywhere, like, P2 was ruined.
There are actually rumours that P2 still continues to this day, but they keep it on the down low. There may still be members of P2 acting within the Italian government. People don't quite know. As I said, we did have Silvio Berlusconi, who made his way to become the Prime Minister of Italy, and he was a member of P2. So it's entirely probable that those Masonic lodges are still in force, not only in Italy, but this is where we get the full tin foil hat point. There may be acting Masonic lodges and governments throughout the globe, in the UK, United States, wherever, that may all have a hand in a lot of our government ideals. There may be a few deaths, a few unusual sorts of things here and there. But that is the conspiracy that I present to you today. Roberto Calvi was murdered and hung under Blackfriars Bridge as a message by P2 to ensure that A, he was kept silent, and B, nobody stepped out of line.
No, it's not about winning, it's about sending a message.
It's about sending a message.
It's about sending a message.
It's about sending a message. And that Calvi himself is one of a long list of assassinations perpetrated by P2, including various hitmen involved in the killing, and even the killing of a pope. That is where I stand on this thing.
Yeah.
So, with this brought into light, one thing I would like to ask you, Coral. The mysterious death of Roberto Calvi. Do you believe that it is worthy of a place in the Archive of Anomalies?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Someone doesn't just die being hung under a bridge with no signs of being hung. That doesn't just happen.
No, this is the kind of shit. This is the kind of insane nonsense that goes on.
Like, there's no way stuff like I get that like murders get covered up all the time, but that is one insane way to cover up a murder.
It's
And to
just...
leave the money in his pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why the fuck would you do that? Take the money.
Take the money, run, disappear.
If it was an actual like serious murder, you'd take the money. But it was obvious, like it was cleared up that he wasn't hung, like he didn't hang himself. So like, why is the money still in his pockets?
Why were the bricks in his pocket?
Why did he have his passport on him?
Remember, that was a fake passport.
This is fair.
That was probably to confuse him.
Yeah.
But what? Why would you leave the money? Why would you...
Why leave the money there? That's what I'm concerned about.
Why leave the bricks in there?
Apparently they planted the bricks.
They planted the bricks.
Why? Is this in case he fell off the rope?
just to keep him hung there, just...
If he fell off, he'd just sink.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing that the bricks there, because he was really left in the breeze, you know. Really left him hanging on that one. But yeah, so I believe that was the mysterious death of Roberto Calvi. This is a conspiracy that has led me down a rabbit hole like nobody's business, as I think best described in the very first image, the embodiment of Charlie Day sat there piecing this whole thing together. And I don't know about you Carl, but I like to think that both of us deserve a place on the Pepe Sylvia board.
Oh yeah.
So, with that all being said,
I've connected the dots. You haven't connected shit. I've connected them.
We've done it. We've put it all together. I'm the one with the red thread here. You fool.
I see your murder case and I raise you a conspiracy.
You fool.
I draw Pot of Greed to draw 3 additional cards from my deck.
What does the Pot of Greed do? Apparently it kills a pope, 4 other people, and then hangs a banker underneath Blackfriars Bridge.
I play Pot of Greed to commit 6 murders.
Oh dear. Pot of Greed is now wanted in the Vatican for murder. That's it.
That's it.
This is the case.
I saw a TikTok the other day of a guy who looked exactly like the Pot of Greed. This is completely unrelated to any of the discussion we just had, but it was so funny.
I mean, we've seen what Pot of Greed do, but let's be honest here.
This is just proof that I need to get medicated.
Maybe. Sectioned off, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, but I'm sure my family would love that.
Oh, you know, I mean, you get a nice room, you get a warm jacket, it's comfy, the walls are padded, you know, you can sleep anywhere.
But if I got sectioned, I wouldn't be able to afford my house.
It's fine.
I need to be able to work.
It's fine, you'll have a new house. It's padded,
No.
you get 3 square meals a day, get a warm jacket for your arms, you know.
In case they get cold.
In case you get cold, yeah. You know, what more do you need in life? I think we all deserve to go in this. By the way, if for any reason you find me under Blackfriars Bridge,
it wasn't me.
it wasn't me. I'm a good swimmer. I'm confident in myself. I have no signs of depression or anxiety. I'm living a happy life. I will not shoot myself 27 times in the back of the head, cut myself up, and then
Steve
throw
Maxwell
myself.
Just like say that the Thames is full of disgusting sewage?
Oh yeah, Thames water.
So maybe don't swim there.
Okay, don't swim the Thames. Got it.
Isn't there also like the massive disease outbreak that's happening with our water at the moment?
They're onto us. That's it. P2's in the water supply.
It's turning the frickin' frogs gay!
It's turning the frickin' frogs gay!
Do you
understand that? So, if anyone would want any more coral, where do they find you?
You could click that lovely purple link in Arthur's stream title. Alternatively, I'm on Twitter by a similar name. Just minus the first A, so it's VX Tional Vampire. Because the whole thing doesn't fit on Twitter. It's great.
Damn character limits.
Honestly, ruins my
Pain.
life.
Absolute
I
pain.
just found a nice way to shorten vocational, and it just said no.
No.
On that note, you can also find me on YouTube under Vocational Vampire, because consistency means nothing to me.
What do you mean consistency?
I'm an agent of chaos. You can't stop me.
You can't stop me. There is no hope. There is no consistency.
Mm-mm.
They're coming for us. The
Consistency
CIA
is
is
for straight
involved.
people.
Of course, well, you've also got, remember rightly, you've got a new single released out today alongside, is it Kai, if I remember rightly?
Yeah. Tokyo Shantae Rendezvous. It just came out today.
Brand new
We've been
single.
sat on that for a month. Honestly, Kai just DMs me and is like, I want to sing this, but my range isn't high enough. And so I sing things.
Sing things, do music. You know, bit of music. We should do music. That'd be
Also
fun.
stream pixels and polygons on Spotify.
Woo! Check them out.
It's Vinny's original song and I was featured on it.
Oh, fantastic.
It's about the amazing digital circus.
Ooh. All right,
If
you've
you
got
like
some Twitter spaces.
digital circuses.
For a digital circus, mental breakdown. You know?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. We've decided to sexualize a gummy alligator.
He's hot though.
I mean, one of those things got you acted on Mars, but you know. Gonna be here all day. So yes, check them out. Absolutely fantastic. Vocational Vampire, various other sources, things. New single out alongside Kai, mutual friend of ours. Check that out. I've given it a listen. Absolute banger. And I think that is a podcast. I don't know about you. So from all of us here at the Anomalous Broadcast, it has been a pleasure speaking to you. I have been Arthur Anomalia. This is in Vocational Vampire, aka Coral. And we wish you a fantastic evening. Take care, everyone. And be careful not to find yourself hung under Blackfriars Bridge after being involved in a secret Masonic organisation. I'm telling you, I'm coming after you, P2. The time is coming. You cannot stop me.